Welcome to TopperHQ, your own study hub.
Have you ever really stopped to think about it? We see the results of this process every single day, but the journey itself, it's honestly one of the most incredible transformations happening on our planet. So today, let's explore that story, the story of crop production.
So, first things first, what even is a crop? You might have a tomato plant in your garden, but does that count? Well, it all comes down to two big ideas: growing the same kind of plant and doing it on a large scale. We're not talking about a handful of plants. We're talking about a massive, organized effort to grow something like wheat or rice, all to feed a whole lot of people.
Now, you can't just throw seeds in the ground whenever you feel like it. It just doesn't work that way. Successful farming is kind of like a delicate dance with the weather. And in a huge place like India, that dance is split into two main seasons. Each one has its own unique rhythm, perfect for specific kinds of plants.
And this rhythm is actually pretty fascinating when you break it down. On one hand, you've got your Kharif crops. You can think of these as the monsoon babies. They're sown right when the heavy rains start and harvested in the fall. We're talking about really thirsty plants like Paddy and Maize. Then, on the other side, you have the Rabi crops. These guys love the cooler, drier winter weather. This is where we get our wheat for bread and the peas for our soup.
I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. Farming isn't just some mechanical process. It's really an act of nurturing. It's so true. A crop is just like a baby. It needs constant care, the right food exactly when it needs it, and you've got to protect it from all kinds of dangers so it can grow up healthy and strong.
And all of that care isn't random. It follows a sort of master plan, right? A step-by-step process that farmers have been testing and perfecting for literally thousands of years. And get this, every single one of these steps is absolutely critical. You can't skip one. So, let's walk through this plan together, step by step.
All right, let's start at square one. You know how you can't build a strong house without a solid foundation? Well, it's the exact same idea for a crop. And for a plant, that all-important foundation is two things: the soil it lives in and the seed it comes from.
First up, you got to get the soil ready. And this is so much more than just digging a few holes. It's a whole process called tilling or plowing. What it does is turn and loosen up the soil, making it soft and full of air. Now, why is that so important? Well, it lets the new roots dig down deep to find water, and believe it or not, it also lets them breathe.
And farmers have all kinds of tools for this. You've got the classic plow and hoe, which people have used forever and still do, but these days, modern farming is all about the cultivator, which gets pulled by a tractor. The difference is just huge. It can get a massive field ready in just a few hours, a job that used to take days. It's a perfect example of how technology can just supercharge the whole process.
So, the field is prepped. Time to plant the seeds, right? But hold on. It's not about just chucking seeds everywhere. It all starts with a huge decision, picking the absolute best, highest quality seeds you can find. Think about it. The potential for the entire harvest is locked inside that one tiny seed. Getting that choice right, that's everything.
And you can really see this in how we sow seeds. The old way was just scattering them by hand. The problem? You get uneven growth and a lot of seeds get wasted. But the modern seed drill, it's a total game changer. It's this amazing tool that puts each seed at the perfect depth and distance from its neighbors. Then, it even covers it up with soil. That means less competition between plants and, bonus, the birds can't just swoop in and eat them.
Okay, so the seeds are in the ground. You might think the hard part is over, but no way. In fact, this is where the real work, the caretaking, truly begins. We're now in that super important phase of feeding, watering, and protecting those tiny, vulnerable plants as they start to grow.
Just like us, plants need to eat. They need a steady diet of nutrients to grow strong. And farmers basically give them that food in two main ways. You've got manure, which is the all-natural organic stuff, and then you have fertilizers, which are man-made in factories and are packed with very specific nutrients, usually nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or what farmers call NPK.
So you might be wondering, why do people often say manure is better? Well, think of it this way. Fertilizers give the plants a quick, powerful blast of nutrients. It works, for sure, but manure does something much deeper. It improves the actual health of the soil for the long haul. It helps it hold more water, keeps it nice and airy, and even helps a whole community of good microbes to thrive in there.
Next up, and this one's a no-brainer, water. Irrigation is just the fancy word for giving crops water when there isn't enough rain. But here's the cool part. It's not just about keeping the plant from getting thirsty. Water is like the plant's personal delivery service. It dissolves all those good nutrients in the soil and carries them up through the roots to feed every single part of the plant.
And just like we saw with planting seeds, modern irrigation is all about being smart and efficient. Sprinklers are definitely way better than just flooding a field, but drip irrigation, that's on another level. It is truly revolutionary. It delivers water one drop at a time right to the base of the plant where it's needed most. It wastes almost nothing, which, as you can imagine, is absolutely essential in places where water is scarce.
Okay, so the last piece of the nurturing puzzle is protection. And the biggest threat? Weeds. The best way to think about weeds is like they're uninvited guests who show up to a dinner party and start eating all the food. They just pop up and start stealing all the water, all the nutrients, and all the sunlight from your actual crops. They are fierce competitors, and if you don't get them under control, they can completely ruin the entire harvest. So, after months of all that hard work, getting the soil just right, planting the seeds, feeding, watering, protecting, we finally get to the moment every farmer has been waiting for, the payoff. It's harvest time.
Harvesting, at its core, is pretty simple. It's just cutting the crop after it's all grown up and mature. It really is the finish line for a whole season of hard work. You can do it the old-fashioned way, by hand, with a tool called a sickle, or you can bring in the big machines, a mechanical harvester that just zips through the fields.
But just cutting the plant isn't enough. To get to the part we actually eat, the grain of wheat or the kernel of corn, there are a couple more steps. First, you have to do something called threshing. That's basically separating the tiny grains from the big stalk. Then comes winnowing, which is a clever way of using wind to blow away all the lightweight, useless bits, leaving you with just the heavy, valuable grain.
And this is another place where modern technology is just wow. The combine harvester is an incredible piece of engineering. The name says it all, right? It combines all three of those steps, harvesting, threshing, and winnowing, into one single smooth operation as it drives through the field. It is the absolute peak of farming efficiency.
You'd think we'd be done, but there's one last, super important step. After all that work, the harvested grain is surprisingly fragile. If it gets damp, it can rot. And pests, like insects and rats, would love to have a feast. So proper storage is that final shield. It's what protects the entire harvest before it can get to our plates.
And how you store it really depends on how much you have. At home, a farmer might use something simple and natural, like dried neem leaves to keep pests away. For a larger amount, you'll see big jute bags stacked up in buildings called greeneries. And for the really huge industrial-scale operations, that's when you see those giant metal bins and silos you might spot from the highway.
So there you have it, the whole incredible journey. From one tiny seed in the ground, all the way to grain that's safely stored and ready to feed the world. It's a process we humans have been working on and perfecting for thousands of years. But that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. With more and more people on the planet and a climate that's changing fast, how is this ancient practice going to have to change to keep feeding all of us in the future?